Debate over immigration can be intense and polarizing. Immigration itself is often seen as a bipartisan issue now. But a new Washington Post ABC News poll shows that more Americans of all political stripes see illegal immigration as a crisis now. Washington Post polling analyst Emily Guskin joins us now. So, Emily, what stands out to you about this recent poll?
Thanks for having me. We interviewed a swath of Americans, a representative sample, and we found that 35% of Americans said that they saw that the situation at the border was a crisis, and that's up from when we last asked in January. The interesting thing here was that it increased among Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and it increased pretty significantly among Democrats from 7% to 24% who now say it's a crisis. Now, the largest share of respondents for this question still said it was a serious issue at the border and not a crisis.
And you mentioned since the last poll was done in January, since that time, we have heard about how detention facilities are over capacity at the border, how some Border Patrol officers were being diverted to go where more resources were needed. Do you think that all of those headlines really are playing into this increasing opinion about it being a crisis?
We can't really say for sure what is driving opinion on this, but we did find that two-thirds opposed Trump's declaration of about two-thirds opposed Trump's declaration of a national emergency to bring in more funding for a border wall. So there's pretty large united support against the national declaration.
So interesting that more Americans on all sides of the aisle are seeing this as a crisis, yet the majority of those polled are still not in favor of the president's declaration of a crisis along the border. Am I understanding that?
You're understanding it perfectly. Americans are also split on a few other things. We asked a question on whether the U.S. should make it harder, easier, or kept the same for immigrants to declare asylum. And Americans are split almost evenly, three ways. And Americans are also split over who's to blame for the immigration issue between Democrats in Congress or the president himself.
These polls, we see them done so often to kind of give us, the opinion of Americans on so many different topics. What should people do with this information?
I think it's good to get us out of our bubble when we get public opinion information about what people across the country think. Oftentimes we're seeing what our friends share on Facebook or talking to people that we know every day. So when we have public opinion data that's showing what the country overall thinks, it really gives us the opportunity to learn what the country as a nation is thinking and seeing about things.
So seeing the opinions of people who aren't just in your news feed.
Yes.
All right, Emily Guskin from the Washington Post, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.